Okay, in my previous video I told you what I did to prep the Terminator. Now I'm going to tell you what I did to put the base coat on. With Chrome, I've heard a bunch of different things. Some people said you have to use a black base coat, some people say use a white base coat, and some people just say as long as the paint job is glossy, that's good enough. For me, I decided to use the black base coat because that was the consensus. I haven't tried using like no base coat or a white base coat, but you know, I just heard black is the best. So that's what I used. Now, the two base coats that I used on this Terminator was Tamiya TS14 and the Alclad 2 lacquer. And both have benefits and both have drawbacks. With the Tamiya, the biggest benefit is that the shine you get off of it is wonderful, and the glossier your paint job base coat is, the better for the chrome, because your chrome is only going to be as shiny as your base coat. So the TS14, you get a really nice shine, and it pretty much only takes one application. Now there are times where the paint will clump up just a little bit, and there will be exposed areas, and I don't know why the paint does that, but if you try to paint over it immediately, it'll still clump up, and there'll be exposed areas. There's just areas that will not take the paint immediately. But the good thing is, if you see that happen, don't panic. Just let the paint dry. You don't even have to sand the paint off or anything. And after it dries, then come back and just hit those exposed spots with Tamiya again, and it will blend very well. I was surprised. I thought I might have to resand everything, but I didn't have to. Now, the drawbacks to the Tamiya is that it does lack a little bit of control, but as long as you spray from around 8 to 9 inches away, you should be fine. Sometimes I sprayed a little too close and I got paint runs, but when I was more patient with it, it was fine. You know, control was never a huge issue because it levels so well, and I don't really have too many complaints about the TS14. Now, the biggest problem with TS14 is that it's expensive. It's around $7 to $8 a can, and all I did was spray like the big parts, like the legs, the chest part, his arms, and his head with the Tamiya. And just that took me around 3 cans. So we're talking about close to $24 just for the black base coat, and you haven't even bought your chrome yet. So it starts getting really expensive. And if you wanted to paint all the small parts, you might be talking about another can of Tamiya. So now it's like $30 just for a black base coat. So you waste a lot of paint with the Tamiya TS14. Now with the Alclad Black, that's only around $9 a bottle. And as you can see, I've only used like maybe a quarter of it. This bottle could probably actually cover a whole Terminator if you use it wisely. And the good thing about it is you can put it into an airbrush. It's pre-thinned, so you don't have to thin it with any sort of thinner, and yeah, overall it's more economical than the TS14. Now the biggest problem with the Alclad is that you're going to have to hit it several times. I would say to get a good coat you're probably going to need to hit it 3 times. The first time is just to lay down a base coat for the second coat to bite into, and then the second coat you can really start darkening it up. And finally, the third coat is to really get it a dark black. If you try to do it all at once, the paint's not going to stick. It's going to drip all over the place. It's too watery. So you really have to be patient. But another drawback to the Alclad Black is that even with the 3 coats, it's not going to be as shiny as a TS14. And so what you can do to help that is get these things called polishing papers. And I got these micro mesh polishing papers, and they go from 3200 to 3600 to 4000, 6000, 8000, 12,000 grit. And you have to go through all those progressions, polishing your Terminator. And what that will do is really smooth out that paint job. But it'll also dull the finish. So then you have to go and do a fourth coat after all that polishing to really get that nice glossy shine. But to be honest, even after all that work, you'll get really close to the TS14, but you're probably not going to equal the TS14. So like I said, the TS14 is really good, except it's expensive. Oh, and also, if you look at the Terminator, there's a lot of tiny little areas that you're probably not going to be able to get to with your polishing papers. So, for me, I think if you're going to go this route, the Tamiya and if you're trying to decide, should I go all Tamiya or should I go Alclad or whatever, I would say at least do TS14 for the big parts. And then Alclad, you can go in and do the hands and the feet, and you should be good to go. Now, if you have the money, go ahead, go all Tamiya, because Tamiya is just great. TS14 gives you a really nice mirror type shine. Okay, but here's the one thing. If I had to do this Terminator over again, I probably would use neither, because from what I understand, testers make something called Model Master Enamel, and their gloss black enamel is apparently the base coat of choice, and I found that out after the fact, after painting this whole thing. And the reason why is because the Alclad that I used apparently does not stick all that well to lacquer paints, which surprised me because I figured, this is the Alclad Chrome is a Alclad product, so obviously the best base coat should be the Alclad 2 black lacquer, but it's not. I've tried rubbing off the chrome with my fingers on parts painted with both base coats, and they rub off just the same. You don't get any sort of extra durability with the Alclad 2 black lacquer. And I found that the chrome you can leave fingerprints, it can rub off, and I was a little disappointed with the chrome's durability, but it could be due to the fact that I didn't use Tester's Model Master Enamel. Now, that would be one way to go if I did this again. The other way I'd go is to just paint everything with a Krylon black. I can get a huge spray can that would cover the entire Terminator easy. And then go with a Minwax polyurethane clear coat. And I'd use the clear coat to create the glossiness. So, like I said, you can go several different routes, but if you do the Tamiya and the Alclad route, you're going to notice that the chrome is not going to be too durable. And I haven't tried it with the other base coats, but I've heard the other base coats work much better. So that's the base coating process. I'll be back to tell you about the chroming process.